बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं आपकी होस्ट शाहिदा मिर्ज़ा, बोंजोर मोंट्रियल में। आज हमारे साथ जो शख्सियत मौजूद हैं स्टूडियो में, हमारे लिए बड़ी इज़्ज़त की बात है कि इन्होंने अपना कीमती वक्त हमें दिया। मिस्टर ग्राहम कारपेंटर, पॉलिटिकल अटैचे, ऑनरेबल मिस्टर थॉमस मोक्लेयर। Welcome, Mr. Carpenter Graham.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Today you are here with us. First thing first, we are really honored to have a political people around us. So tell us about, short and sweet, about your personal life.
I was born and raised in Montreal. My father was a musician in the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. He played cello.
Oh.
And then he became a personnel manager for the Montreal Symphony Orchestra for many years. My mother was a homemaker. She was a social worker before that, and she was always a choir director for choirs in churches. I always grew up going to church, and I went to school mostly in Montreal.
Right.
Raised here. I lived for a short time in the Yukon. I've spent a good amount of time traveling in my life, and I have two daughters. They're grown up, 17 and 23. Like
we said, mashallah, and you don't look that
well,
23 years old.
I guess we don't have to get so personal that I tell you how old I am, but yeah, old enough to have a 23-year-old daughter.
That's true. God bless her.
So basically been centered around Montreal all my life.
Okay, so you always wanted to be a political, or you have something else in your dream when you were a teenager?
No, I think on the contrary, even if you had gone back to 2 years before I was in politics, if somebody had told me that I would end up working in politics, I would have laughed at them. And I suppose the difference between my dream and what I was always told I was good at.
Okay.
My mother always told me I would either be an actor or I would be a lawyer, one of the two.
Wow.
Which is probably a bit of an indictment on me. It meant that I was constantly being difficult. But no, I think when I was younger, I mean, I went through various stages, you know,
right.
the fireman, you know, policeman, hero kind of personality.
Okay.
But I think that being raised the way I was, public service one way or the other was what's important. Being able to wake up in the morning and feel like you've made a positive difference in your community, in your world, that's what's important. And everything else, if you make that happen, then everything else will come much more easily.
Yeah, that's true. So what I heard, so you want to be like a police officer?
When I was a kid, you're talking, I mean, when I was 12, 13, yeah, sure. I'm sure I, you know, spent a good amount of time wondering what it would be like to be a hero of some description, you know, one of our public servants who comes to people's aid, not necessarily understanding that there are lots of different ways.
Yes.
That social workers are heroes, that doctors are heroes, that even lowly lawyers can be heroes.
Yes.
You know, and that we can all find ways in our life to contribute.
So what's really bring you? Like, what's really at the end you choose that professional?
Politics?
Yeah.
Oh no, it chose me. I didn't choose it.
They come to get you?
Really? Mr. Montreal came to get me.
Oh, that's very interesting, though. I really want to know why.
I knew the Montreal family all my life.
Okay.
My family has had a house up in the Laurentians in the same community where Thomas Mulcair's family always had a place.
Right.
So I'd known Tom was the second of 10 kids.
Okay.
The 10th of those 10 kids was the best man at my wedding.
Okay.
So
he approached you.
My best friend. So I got a call one day from Mr. Mulcair saying, "I want you to come and work in my cabinet."
Wow.
And at the time, I had a business. I
Right.
was tearing down barns and recycling barn wood and building furniture with it. And so when he said, I want you to come and work in my cabinet, I thought, cabinet? You want me to come and repair something? You want me to fix something? And he was like, no, I want you to wear a tie and come and work. He was the Minister of the Environment of Quebec at the time. And I did not understand why he wanted me to come and work for him, but he asked, and I talked it over with my wife. I was married at the time, and I got back to him the next day, and I said, you know, give me a month and a half to finish up some contracts, and I'll be there. And life has never been the same since.
Did ever you ask him that question, why exactly he approached you? What he saw in you?
I asked him when he first asked me to work for him.
Right.
And his answer was, forget about why, are you interested? And he had no interest in telling me why he wanted me to come and work for him. But in politics, truly, people from all different backgrounds can be useful. And I mean, I had been a small business person, you know, I mean, I had that experience, but I had other experiences previous in my life. And in politics, if you are a smart politician, you want people
that's no doubt
that you can trust and that can get the job done. There are a million different ways to do your job well in politics, and one's personal style and personality can always come through in the context of being respectful of the citizens, respectful of the taxpayer, respectful of people's personal needs and so on. But there's lots of different ways to be a political attaché or be a politician and serve the public. And so as long as you know how to get the job done, and as long as you're trustworthy, there's a potential to work in politics, I would say.
So then correct me. It's mean Honorable Mr. Thomas Mulcair, he saw everything on you. Whatever you just said it. I think.
I guess he made that I guess he made that judgment. You know, I've been with him for 13 years, so I guess he hasn't regretted his decision. You know, I've worked for him, you know, when in Chomedy-Laval, because he was the MNA for Chomedy and the Minister of the Environment. So I worked at the time he was minister. Most ministers have 3 offices. They have an office in Quebec City. They have an office in Montreal, and then they have their riding office where they are an elected official.
I did not know that.
Mr. Mulcair decided when he became minister that he would close down his Montreal office and open a larger riding office in Chomedy-Laval.
Wow.
And he saved money for the taxpayer while doing it. And he was also minister responsible for Laurentians and Lanaudière. And so in his office, I handled the files that were related to his responsibility there. And I did some of the environment files. And then obviously the riding files as well, dealing with the public and their problems with the provincial government at the time. And then I opened up. I was the one who rented the campaign office in 2007. I was one of the people that made sure that Tom got in touch with Jack Layton at the time when that happened.
I remember him.
In late 2006, Jack Layton's personal assistant and I got Tom and Jack together, and the rest was history as far as the NDP was concerned. So
it was tough. It was tough. So it's been 13 years you are involved in this.
13 and a half years.
13 and a half. And if you ask today the same question what I asked you before, if you ask Mr. Thomas Mulcair, Honorable, what will be his answer? Like what he exactly saw in you? Did you think he's able to answer you today?
Speaking for other people in politics is always dangerous.
I just asked.
I'm sure he'd have plenty of comments, but I think our relationship has been fantastic. He is my mentor, obviously, in politics, and you know, it doesn't make one a carbon copy of the person who is their mentor. But it means that almost all the valuable lessons that one learns and the structure out of which one comes to understand the political world comes from that person's training. And so I'm obviously immensely grateful to him, and we'll see what the future brings.
Futures bring.
Sure.
So then, how you feel first as a liberal.
Yeah.
Now as a
Restaurant 786 Best Pakistani Restaurant in Montreal 100% halal ਇੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਪਨੀਰ, ਦਾਲ, ਸਾਗ, ਮਿਕਸ ਵੈਜ, ਕੜੀ ਪਕੌੜਾ ਤੇ ਨੌਨ ਵੈਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੋਸ਼ਤ, ਲਾਹੌਰੀ ਫਿਸ਼, ਲਾਹੌਰੀ ਚਿਕਨ, ਸੀਖ ਕਬਾਬ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਣੀ ਆ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਤੇ ਗਰੁੱਪਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਿਊਟੀਫੁਲ ਰੈਸਟੋਰੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬੈਸਟ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਤੇ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ। ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਪਹੁੰਚੋ ਜਾਂ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 514 270 0786।
left. That's a tough question, though.
It's an important distinction.
Right.
Actually, Thomas Mulcair was a member of the NDP. He got his membership in the NDP when he was 14 years old.
Oh.
There is now a party that it calls itself the NDP of Quebec,
right.
the provincial NDP. But at the time, that did not exist.
Okay.
So, in Quebec, for the last 45 years,
right.
since the rise of the PQ, political parties on the provincial scene have always been, or more or less been, separatist,
yes.
souverainist, or federalist. And,
right.
and the divide happened on that. It didn't happen along a line of left politics and right politics.
Yeah.
It was not on social issues. It was not on anything other than the constitutional question, right? And in Quebec, that was the reality. So people that were voted NDP federally
right.
but were federalist would vote for the Liberal Party provincially. Right? And people that voted conservative federally would also vote, often if they were federalist, they would vote for the Liberal Party at the provincial level. And then people that were sovereignist in their thinking and their alignment, regardless of how they voted at the federal level before the Bloc Québécois came in the 90s, people were left at the federal level to either not vote or vote for one of the options that were all obviously federalist parties.
That's true, yeah.
And so they voted according to their conscience and their own political leanings. So there is no real contradiction between going from provincial Liberal to NDP. Jean Charest was the Premier of Quebec for the Liberal Party, and before that he was a Conservative minister in Brian Mulroney's government, right? So there is definitely a difference in culture,
right.
in terms of the political parties. In my experience, the conflicts and the disagreements that are had in the interior of the NDP tend to be much more open, much more expressed.
Right.
I think that there is a longer and deeper tradition in other parties, and not just the Liberal Party, but probably the Conservative Party as well, of playing politics a little bit more American style, House of Cards, things behind scenes and so on.
That's true.
In my experience, the conflicts and the disagreements that happen in the NDP tend to be much more out in the open.
Well, I'm being honest. मैं ये जो अभी मिस्टर ग्राम कारपेंटर ने सारा हमें एक्सप्लेन किया है, it's something new for me too. आज मैंने भी कुछ लर्न किया है पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में, तो I felt कि ये बातें बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी होती हैं। हम जिस मुल्क में रहते हैं उस मुल्क का भी सियासत का, पॉलिटिक्स का हम लोगों को पता होना चाहिए। So I just said it because I felt, and I have a good, like what you just share, I never heard it, and it's good to know, and it's very deep and detailed. You did give it to us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm glad it was useful.
It is. I think it is. And I think my audience also will find that very useful.
And sure, and obviously there is, just as there is a deep and rich political history in Pakistan and other places in the world, Quebec and Canada have their own histories, their own places. How did we get to where we are? is not a negligible question. And in terms of understanding the political realm today, you do, to a certain extent, have to know a little bit of history of how we got to where we are to be able to put things in context, to know why people get upset about certain things, or why certain issues are more important to a certain group than other issues. These types of things are definitely hidden in the history of the political realm in whatever place you're living in.
So you just talk about issue.
Yeah.
I know the district you are is in Outremont.
Yes.
What's are the issue for Outremont? It is like a like here at the park extension, like it's a diversity, multicultural. Tell us about a little bit.
So it has changed a little bit.
Right.
This building that we are now in on Jean Talon,
yes,
was up until 2015 part of the riding of Outremont. In 2015, lead up to 2015, there was a change in the boundaries of the ridings of Canada.
Okay.
And one of the things that happened was that this part of Park Extension, from the train tracks until Jean Talon, went to the Papineau riding, and our riding expanded in other places but lost this part. But we developed relationships with the people in this part of the city over the course of 8 years or more, and those relationships are not something that you let go. You continue to build on them. So even if Mr. Mulcair doesn't any longer represent the people, any of the people in Park Extension specifically, that's been part of our reality. And in truth, the reality of Park Extension is not drastically dissimilar from the reality in the rest of Outremont.
Right.
Even though Outremont, the federal riding, is the borough of Outremont, the small little borough that includes, you know, the very fancy houses on the hill around the Université de Montréal, and you know, also apartment buildings and whatnot. It also includes the plateau all the way to down to Saint-Denis.
Okay.
And it also includes much of Côte-des-Neiges. And Côte-des-Neiges specifically is what makes of Outremont an incredibly multicultural riding.
Okay.
We have 130 different languages spoken in the home in Outremont.
130.
Yes. I mean, that includes 6 different state languages from the Philippines. That includes, you know, Urdu, Hindi, you know, Spanish, Portuguese, Vietnamese, Chinese, Arabic obviously is a huge one. Yiddish is a huge language with the Hasidic community.
Okay.
We have a lot of languages that are spoken in our language.
So last week I had an interview with one of a doctor at the CLSC Park Extension. And he was talking to us and telling us about the language barrier. And so we heard, but what about Outremont? Do they have that problem, that issue for language barrier? They're going to CLSC or the hospital, do they?
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why at the federal level, to the extent that we can, we do everything we can to support the organizations that provide translation services. There are community groups in Côte-des-Neiges that specifically recruit volunteers who speak different languages. So they speak English and Vietnamese, or French and Arabic. And so they can make the translation for the services that are available, you know, from government services for the people that are there who haven't yet, you know, gotten their language. And obviously, it's also a question of age, right?
Yes.
The young kids who are going to school that get, you know, sent into French school, you walk through Park Extension and you meet the parents who speak, you know, English and Urdu, or English and Hindi, or you know. And very little French, because the French is very hard for them to pick up.
Yes.
And yet you listen to their kids speak, you know, and they may have actually been born back in Pakistan or in India or in Bangladesh. And yet they speak French like a little Quebecois, you know, and you wouldn't, if you heard them on the phone, you wouldn't even know the difference.
That's true. That's true.
So that I would say is a big success of you know, one of the language policy of Quebec. I would say that's proof of a large success that has been created. But I would say also that translation and being able to provide services in different languages, not everybody's in the same situation.
That's true.
It's hard to learn a language when you're older.
Yes.
And to a large extent, you know, a government has a responsibility to try and make those things possible.
Yes.
And I would say that it's actually a much more efficient way to go about it, to reach out to people in the community to help do those translations when need be. You can't expect professionals in all their different fields to be comfortable speaking all those different languages. I mean, you can have different people from those backgrounds becoming professionals and being able to communicate with the people from their similar background as them or their similar language as them. But when you have 130 different languages spoken in the home, you can't hope to find anybody that is going to be able to cover all the bases.
That's true.
So you know, within the limits of the possible, I think that it's a wonderful thing to have volunteers in any given community who offer their services and, you know, can be booked for appointments to come in and go to see.
शादी बुकिंग कर लो जी मेरा रेस्टोरेंट भाई मेरा रेस्टोरेंट 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 मेरा रेस्टोरेंट
Restaurant 790 Jerry West Montreal, Quebec, Canada H391G6. Contact 514-495-2110 and 514-991-9112. Information Syed Musa Raza.
A doctor with somebody, go and see a mechanic if necessary with somebody. You know, whatever is required, and help the adjustment period and help people through.
So, Ismeen, what I understood, you say it's the community who, as a volunteer, they're the one who help to translate.
There are
or is the Banque d'Interprète exist? What Dr. Shergwin talked to us last week here at the CLSC Park Extension, they do have Banque d'Interprète.
Banque d'Interprète is exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, perfect.
And obviously there are differences as well. There are some communities, some communities that organize themselves in such a way as to make sure that they have specific services for the people of their same background. I know of a group from the Tamil community that does that, for example, for people, for Tamil speakers who are in Canada.
Right.
There are other communities that do the same thing.
Okay, interesting.
But the Banque d'Interprète that is managed via community groups that don't have a specific focus on a specific community, but rather on society as a whole in a multicultural context.
Okay, thank you. So, what traditionally has been the role of the NDP in Canada?
Well, you're going to have to go back to the origins of the NDP. The origins of the NDP were very much fighting for the little guy.
Okay.
The farmers, laborers.
And which year are you talking about when you say back?
Early 60s.
Early 60s? Okay.
Early 60s was when the different factions, different parties came together under Tommy Douglas to create the NDP as we know it today. And so the NDP also exists in all provinces now. Quebec has just started to have an NDP Quebec that I think is going to be running candidates in the next provincial election coming up this fall.
That's true.
But the NDP has always had a role up until recently, up until 2011.
Right.
They were always third-party status at best. They played the role of conscience of the country. They were the ones who would, as the Liberals have most often been in power, they were the ones that reminded the Liberals of the values that they pretend, they said that they espoused to but didn't always live up to, and wagged their finger at them and reminded them of what was important. Always hoping to form government. Much of the NDP always dreamed of forming government, and we have formed government in many provinces. We've been the government in Nova Scotia, in Ontario, in BC. We are right now in Alberta and BC. We've been the government in Saskatchewan. We've been in the government in Manitoba. We've made our impressions, and people have believed enough in the NDP and NDP values to make them governments at provincial level. It's never quite happened at the federal level, but obviously in 2011 with the Orange Wave we came close.
Okay.
We came close.
So we heard about Honorable Mr. Thomas Mulcair stepping down.
Yep.
It is true.
It's true. Sometime this summer, he will be resigning.
Resigning?
Yes.
Officially?
Officially resigning his seat from Parliament, yep. And he's going to go and teach at Université de Montréal.
Really?
Yes. He is also the president of the board of the Earth Day group in Montreal. He has many different activities that are going to end up filling his time and filling his day, but his main responsibility will be teaching at Université de Montréal, and I think he's very much looking forward to it.
Okay, so then I should ask you the next question, and probably what's your plan? Are you...
That's a good question. I'm quite set on the idea of seeing the Mulcair train into the station.
I can see you
until he's actually retired. After that, the options are open, and I haven't made a decision about what. I'm in a phase of scanning the horizon to see what it is that I want to do next.
It's true. Yeah.
And it may or may not be in politics.
Right.
It'll be a tough goal to achieve, to find someone to work for that I would have as much respect for as Thomas Mulcair. And so in that sense, when you start at the top, it's hard to slip.
That's true.
Feel like you're slipping backwards. And that would be if I would choose to work for somebody else. And the other option is obviously to run again. I actually ran in the municipal elections, in the last municipal elections, and in the district of Darlington. And the man that I lost to is now the leader of the official opposition in Montreal.
Okay.
So it was a good showing, but it didn't quite happen. I might do that again, but I'm not set on the idea of staying in politics forever, necessarily. I like politics. I'm sure there's elements of it that I will deeply miss.
That's for
sure. But I've been doing the same job for, or related jobs for the, pretty much for 13 years. And so it's not a bad idea to have a change also, to go and work in different fields, work in different areas.
Perfect. So at the end, any message you want to give out to our audience?
To the Pakistani community as a whole.
Or South Asian.
To the South Asian community.
Yes.
I've watched for the last 10 years, 11 years specifically at the federal level.
Right.
The South Asian community taking more and more its rightful place in our society.
Good. Yes.
People having great success, reaching reaching heights that were difficult to imagine when the immigration from the South Asian community really started.
It started, yeah.
And never consider yourselves second-class citizens. Insist and know that you have something to contribute.
Yes.
And make sure that that contribution is made. And if it is made, it will be recognized. And you don't have to worry that you will contribute and that it won't be recognized. It will be recognized. Keep your head high and keep contributing and keep creating and bringing new creations into that which is Canada, because finally that's what Canada is.
That's true.
And obviously I look forward to working and staying close with the South Asian community, the Pakistani community, the Indian community, the Sikh community, the Sri Lankan community, Bangladeshi community. These are communities that I have grown very close to over the last 13 years, and I look forward to that continued friendship.
Well, thank you very much to give us that opportunity, to give your time, because I know it's hard to give a time, but we really appreciate. And I personally known you for a good 7-8 years, and I saw you are very involved with not only with the Pakistani community, you involved with the South Asian community.
Sure.
So whenever we invite you in events, your presence always there, and is always happy to see you. And I can see you as a good leader, a future good leader. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's my pleasure. So अब मैं आप लोगों से इजाज़त लेती हूँ, और जिस तरह मैं हर अपने सेगमेंट में आपको कहती हूँ कि हमारा फेसबुक पेज लाइक करें, प्राइम कनाडा टीवी, कमेंट्स हमें प्लीज़ दें, आपने किस पर्सनालिटी से, किस शख्सियत से आप मिलना चाहते हैं, किन के बारे में आप जानना चाहते हैं, सो प्लीज़ आप हमें अपना मैसेज फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हैं। अपनी होस्ट शाहिदा मिर्ज़ा को इजाज़त दें, लेकिन एक शर्त पे अपना बहुत ज़्यादा ध्यान रखिएगा। अल्लाह हाफिज़। Bonjour Montreal।
रेस्टोरेंट 786 बेस्ट पाकिस्तानी रेस्टोरेंट इन मॉन्ट्रियल 100% हलाल। इत्थे तुसीं शाही पनीर, दाल, साग, मिक्स वैज, कड़ी पकौड़ा ते नॉन वैज विच गोश्त, लाहौरी फिश, लाहौरी चिकन, सीख कबाब दा नाम सुन के तुहाडे मूँह विच पानी आ जाएगा। फैमिली ते ग्रुप्स वास्ते साडे ब्यूटीफुल रेस्टोरेंट विच तुहानू बेस्ट सर्विस ते फैमिली माहौल मिलेगा। अज ही पहुंचो जां कॉल करो 514 270 0786।